what we do, you know what Twitch is. Does anybody not know what live streaming is? Twitch, any of that?
What's Twitch?
One, what is Twitch? Okay, I've got one out here. Two, hey, the guy in the back has no idea what's going on. Hang back. So just a quick rundown of what it is. So live streaming, we're literally producing video live and shipping it across the internet in sort of a nutshell. And we're doing this through a platform primarily called Twitch. And Twitch is awesome because you get some live audience interaction as you're sort of talking within usually 3 or 4 seconds of whatever's happening on the screen. So it provides a really good mechanism for questions and answers, people to be idiots and say things when you screw up, which happens a few times, and kind of go from there. So it's a really cool platform, it's a really cool way to show products, it's really kind of a raw way to show products. And we've got here a group of folks who are involved in live streaming and a couple guys who also do a little bit of YouTube on the side as well. So I'm going to start by introducing everybody. We're going to do just a little bit, right? So I'm going to start by introducing everybody. We're going to do probably a few minutes of some canned questions that I pulled from the internet. I sent a survey out a couple of weeks ago, just to kind of get the ball rolling here. And then at some point later on, towards the end of the panel here, we're going to open it up and allow everybody on the floor to ask questions if they have anything. So if you've got questions as we're going, if you say, hey, I want to know more about that thing, stand up, raise your hand, run up and down, keep your pants on while you're doing it, the wiles and whatnot, and we'll let you go from there. So I'll start with myself. My name is Ty Shuff. I go by catstrator on Twitch. I live in the Boston area. I'm a marketing engineer. I started flight simming about 5 years ago. I'm pretty new to kind of this whole thing. Like I came in about a year into X-Plane 10. FSX was already kind of on the way out and all that. So I haven't had a lot of exposure. All these guys talk about, yeah, I flew my flight simulator back in the 80s and it was like 2-bit graphics and whatever else. I don't have any of that. So I've been flying. I fly primarily online. We usually drink some beers and have a good time, just kind of laugh around a little bit. I started pursuing my PPL a little over a year ago and obtained my private pilot's license at the end of September. And this year I'm in the process of working on my instrument rating. So flight simulation has been awesome to help kind of practice and get ready and kind of get up to speed on that. And then also the Twitch streaming stuff on the side and just kind of have a laugh and have a good time. So I'll hand it off here. We got Brenden.
Hey guys, my name's Brenden Quinn. I go by the name of Dirkadurka on Twitch. Originally from South Africa, but I now live in the UK. I've been in the UK for 22 years. Been flight simming for 15 years, 16 years, and I've been on Twitch for about 6 years. And I just appreciate all the support and good to be here. Thank you.
Good. Is it afternoon yet? Am I allowed to say good afternoon or is it still good morning? I don't know where I am. Good afternoon. My name's Matt, or Chewy. I live stream on Twitch. I've been doing it now for just over 2 years or so. Started full-time on Twitch in about January of 2017. Mainly airliner-based streamer. I can't get the other stuff, it's just too confusing for my small brain. My history within the gaming industry as a whole, I used to be a Counter-Strike and Call of Duty sports commentator. So coming to the flight simulation community was a completely different thing for me. But I love it, I wouldn't change it for the world. So I gave up my Counter-Strike days of FPS gaming and just started streaming flight sim for a bit of fun. And it went from there. And as you can probably tell by the accent, I'm not native here. I come from Oxford in England. So.
Hi, my name's Paul. I run a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel called Squirrel. It's focused on simulation gaming. I spent pretty much a career in IT and then sort of went on to start my own channel about 5 years ago, focusing on simulation. So I cover not just flight sims, but truck sims, bus sims, even train sims. I have taken some of it into the real world. I've driven trucks in the real world, buses in the real world. And I'm currently studying my PPL, so I should be finishing that up in about 2 months' time.
Hello everybody, my name is Jeff Favignano. I'm a YouTube content creator and I also do Twitch as well. I've been doing YouTube content creation since about 2012 and I did Twitch at the same time. I didn't get serious with my Twitch until about 2016 where I was like, well, maybe I'll start doing this more often or not. Either way, I'm probably the only ones that you'll see streaming X-Plane 11 that actually says I'm streaming X-Plane 11, not Flight Simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator. But I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and I live in Orlando, Missouri. Yeah, that's it. Orlando, Florida now, and I'm really, really happy to see this expo grow to the size it is. It's like my third flight sim convention.
Technically, it's the first expo.
First expo, but you know what I mean. But it's good to see this many people here and watch this hobby grow.
Hi, I'm Alan. I stream. I started streaming flight simulator stuff, and I started getting pretty mad that flight models were garbage. So then I became a flight model developer for X-Plane specifically, and that's still trooping along at the moment. But now I'm kind of shifting into real-world airplanes. So currently I have a Vans experimental RV-10. And I'm live streaming the build of this aircraft. So I've got wings, tail, all that other stuff. But yeah, background pilot, aviation engineer, and now I make videos. That's pretty much it.
Just so you know. And you never read the, yeah, he doesn't read the chat. So like I said, here's what I want to do. I have a few questions. I have a whole bank of questions that came in from the internet. I really appreciate those. My goal was to get some of the questions like, why do you do it, what do you do, kind of these sort of things. And then we get the real meat and potatoes from the guys that are here today, and the gals. So I want to start with one question here. Anonymous from California. He wants to know, what's your pre-stream process? As in, how do you pick a route, how do you pick a plane, and then how do you sort of tie that all together? I figured I'd start off with Chewy on that one, because he's big on, here's the route that I'm going to fly, and here's the plane that I'm going to fly. Over here. Turn it on too.
Is it off? It's off. It is on, now it's on, there you go, thank you. So, a lot of people don't, I don't think realize this, but with flight simulation nowadays, it's very easy to just instantly pick where you want to go, and pick where you want to fly, and pick what you want to fly, and get it set up in a matter of minutes, which is great. But as a live streamer, I approach it from a completely different aspect. I like to plan things in advance. It's just the way that I've always been. So I'll actually usually finish a live stream and already be setting up for the next day in advance, because as a content creator, and if any of you are simmers know in the sim platform Prepared, there's nothing worse than live streaming in front of however many people and things not working. It is the most infuriating thing. You know, things happen and things still do go wrong. But for me, preparation is key, which sounds silly when you're just kind of sitting in a flight sim in home in your pajamas, not doing much, but I think it's important to have things in advance. So I like to put together what route I'm going to fly and adding variation to what I've been doing recently. So it's not just a case of, oh, I fancy flying here today, I'm just going to choose that. It's a case of, have I flown here recently? Is there a demand? Have people been requesting this place for me to fly recently? Or have people been requesting me to fly this certain aircraft recently? Still, the executive decision does come down to me in the end, but I try and take the atmosphere that's in recent streams and how people want to view the content as to what I'm going to do. So I think there's a lot of work in that behind the scenes that people don't fully realize, that it's not just a case of going into your scenery library and clicking the active ones that you want, but I personally take some time into trying to invest into what kind of things I want to show in the next day or for the next week. So.
Right. Anybody else? No, I don't do any of that. I want to answer the question too. Yeah, so everybody asks me, so I stream on Friday nights at whatever, 7 o'clock, and everybody asks me during the day, like, hey, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, I won't tell you. And I don't tell you because I have no idea. I usually figure it out about an hour ahead of time. I look at the weather. I fly mostly in the West Coast. I look at the weather, try to find something interesting. Barring that, I'm just like, throw the dart, say, all right, that one looks good, and off we go. But I try to make sure that every flight that I do has some sort of something that's fun, something that's kind of interesting, whether it's a neat approach, whether it's kind of an interesting flight path, whether it's good weather, whether it's, I don't know, or then there's sometimes we fly and it's just like, I don't know why I just did that, it happens. So, the next question we have is Craig from Scotland said it's pronounced Scotland. I don't know if that's actually true or not, I could be an idiot. He says, as simmers, what is your favorite bits about flight simulation? And I figured I'd go to Paul for this one, because I think Paul has the greatest diversity in sims that he does, and can probably speak to the merits or maybe demerits of flight simulation specifically.
Yeah, so I do, like I say, a diverse array of sims, but I guess Flight Sim is probably the one that has the most detail, like every button is clickable kind of thing. The systems are more of the avionics model, the hydraulics model. If you take that back towards truck simulators and train simulators and bus simulators, it's not quite so detailed. So when I fly in flight simulators, I appreciate the authenticity of the experience, and that's generally what I'm there for if I'm a sim lover. And I just wish that I could convince the other sim creators to bring that from the flight sim world, bring that detail into the trains and buses and that kind of thing.
I just try to basically make simulation fun and exciting. I know Paul does that too, because there's a plethora of plenty of people out there that make the same kind of content, but it can be quite drab and it can be a very painful process to watch. But simulators don't have to be boring. They don't. And I try to throw that flavor into it to be like, hey, have a little bit of personality behind the person flying the plane, for the most part.
Well, the next one's for you, Alan. Yeah. Mr. Nightmare Frame from North Dakota wants to know.
No one cares.
What is your most humbling flight sim moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting. This will lead on to, I think, other questions that we've got here. But there's what I find so interesting about flight simulators is how much they lead to real-life scenarios. So I can remember a flight I recently did in the Rotate MD-80, and here I was hacking along, trying to punch through some cloud, and I did everything right on my side. There was cloud, there was ice in the cloud, and I was punching through this, and anti-ice, all of this stuff was on. And my airspeed started to decay, and looking around the cockpit and doing all these things, and nothing was making sense. Anyway, I ended up stalling the aircraft in mountains below MDA and killing everyone. And it was humbling because I was like, X-plane's broken. Like, I had everything on, I did everything right. But the reality is there's so many incidents and accidents that have happened to real-life pilots that at that moment had the exact same feeling of, I have no idea what the hell's going on. And that's humbling because we can still make the same mistakes in a simulator and learn from it and not kill 168 people. And at the time it's like, oh, I think I know this plane and I know all this stuff. But then all of a sudden the simulator kicks you in the bum and reminds you that no, you're not better than the aeroplane. So I think that's probably the most humbling thing, is that you can still make the same mistakes wearing your pajamas, sitting at home, that a certified real-life pilot who's got tens of thousands of hours in the aircraft, and you can still go through the same logic process and still crash a plane the exact same way that they did. We're all human, doesn't matter how much training we have. So I think is that a good answer?
Yeah, and you can play the flight sim model too.
Yeah, that too, yeah, so I can just fix it.
And go fix it, right? Yeah.
In this case, I'd already killed everyone.
So I'm kind of leading on to that. There's a question that came out, and I unfortunately don't have it in front of me yet, but Paul, I know you're going through your flight training right now, and I'm curious like how the flight sims have helped you with, or if they haven't, like how you feel the flight sims have helped you with your training.
I think they help enormously, absolutely. I mean, I learned so much of the theory behind flying just by flying in simulators. And you know, our flight schools now just got themselves a simulator which is based on X-Plane 11 on my head, and they're using it to train people on, you know, instrument ratings, approaches to the local airfields, all that kind of thing. So they've realised the value of simulating. Of course, if the weather's bad and the students turn up and we can't fly that day, well, at least you've got the option of jumping on sim with an instructor, and they've got like preloaded scenarios they can take you through. So yeah, I would say absolutely. If you're going to learn to fly in real life, simulators they're just so complex and detailed now that they really do mimic the real world very, very well.
So kind of on the topic of complex simulations and things along those lines, I got one for Dirka and Chewy here. Let me figure out who this is from, because this is a good question. Callum from Canada. He wants to know if you have the P3D academic license and can get 5 add-ons, what would they be? Start with you, Brenden, if you don't mind. Grab the microphone now. I'm keeping mine, you can look it up.
Number 5 for me would be Active Sky Next. Weather engine. I would then go for something like Rex textures for scenery. I would then go for Orbex global, Orbex trees, obviously a good plane, something like a PMDG or FlightSim or Majestic Q400 or one of those ones. Yeah, don't get anything too complex. If you're new to flight simming, just keep it quite simple. But you want to try and fly in those most realistic experience. So good weather, good cloud textures, good ground textures. I think that's a good start for you guys.
Mine's very similar to Brendan's. First thing is an aircraft, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of the default aircraft that come with the simulator or prepared. So it doesn't matter whether it's your PMDGs, your FS Labs, your A2As, whatever kind of simming that you like to do. That's the beauty of simming, is that we can do various different types of aircraft and simulation within. So that's my number one thing. Number two, again, like Brendan says, active sky, real world weather injecting into the simulator will never get old. I had an amazing time in Dubrovnik the other day where it was just how it was in real life with these horrible storm cells. And it was great fun to fly through. Glad I wasn't flying it in real life. But without active sky, it would have been difficult to have experienced that in real time. So those are my top two. Next one, again, Brendan mentioned it, is Orbex. Again, I'm not a big fan of the global textures that come default with prepared. So Orbex Global, which you can then expand on over time, is a really good starting point. My fourth one actually is Navigraph. I think, in my experience, I get a lot of people come into my live stream who are unfamiliar with how to use charts and how to use AirAC data or nav data, for example. And so I think learning that from an early point in your prepared life, I don't know if that's the right phrase, but Navigraph and learning how to get the charts down straight away is really important. And then that leads on to the realistic airports. Again, the default prepared sim doesn't have a great array of fully realistic airports with the right taxiways in the right places, and terminal buildings and the runway numbers. So I feel that it's important to choose somewhere locally or somewhere that you would love to fly in the simulator, and just pick up 2 airports straight away, and then you can use your Navigraph charts to apply the data that you learn on that into the airports. You've got your nice textures, you've got your real life weather, and then you've got your aircraft as well, and that should keep you up-started nicely. So those are my 5.
I want to say something else, and I think Ty's got a question, but I might just add into it now. And this really irks me in my channel. I'm just going to bring it up now. I see a lot of this happening in the community about X-Plane, P3D, FSX, this, that, and like X-Plane is rubbish, P3D is rubbish, this is rubbish. You know what, guys? It's down to having fun. This is what it's all about, is getting on the stream and having fun and enjoying yourself. And you know, I've actually installed FSX the other day. Because I miss flying the MD-11, I miss flying the 707 from Captain Sim, I miss flying the TriStar from Captain Sim, the JS41 from PMDG. So I actually installed FSX again, like when I first started flight simming all those years back. So just have fun with it. Don't worry about feel pressure that you've got to get X-Plane or you've got to get P3D. And I just see a lot of this in the community, and I just wish it would just like stop, because just have fun with what you want to fly. If it's P3D, if it's FSX, if it's P3D or whatever it is, just have fun, enjoy it.
That kind of leads into the other question here, the next question. You saw this one coming. And full disclosure, we prepared these questions ahead of time, and they've all seen them. They just don't know necessarily who I'm asking. Most of us fly either one sim exclusively, or, in the case of something like Chewy, one sim primarily. But Brenden is maybe the only guy who flies everything, including FSX. And so Mr. Cirrus Max over here, that guy right there, make sure you say hi to him later. Max wanted to know what are some of the problems and some of the benefits of flying multiple simulators. So some of the issues that you might run into as you switch from one sim to the next fairly frequently. I think I'll start with Brenden on this.
I think I have the most problems on my software and hardware. It is difficult. If I'm flying the Airbus, I've got to set up my joysticks. I'm flying Boeings, and I have to install my yoke. I do find it an issue, especially when you're trying to learn all these different planes. From GA planes, which I love flying, to some of the big jetliners, to some of the older planes, like I mentioned earlier, the MD-11 or the 707 or the TriStar. It is a pain. It is a pain to fly these different simulators. But that's the content I want to give to my audience and my channel. Is I like mixing it up. As I said, I go from GA stuff to modern jet to the real old stuff as well. I fly the Spitfires and the Mustangs from A to A. So it's not easy. I do find a lot of stuff does conflict with each other. The different software, but you just get around it. As Matt said earlier, you just prepare. I've got a full-time job. I don't do the streaming like some of these guys. I'm a brewer. I brew beer for a living, so it is difficult sometimes. You've had a full day and then you get home and you prepare your stream and you get into problems, and sometimes I start streaming like 10, 11 o'clock at night. But you get around it, and it's fun. So.
I tried to stream P3D once a while back. I was completely lost. I consider myself a pretty tech-savvy person, so I commend you for doing that, because I have no idea how to make the cameras work, how to get around. It was the clunkiest stream I probably ever had. So it was a good time. I got one for Alan now. So Sergio from Spain. I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, but essentially more complex simulations are becoming the norm, they're becoming more common. You've got Flight Factor A320, you've got PMDG products and the FSOps products, all that stuff kind of hitting the market. What do you think the impact of these sort of more complex and sort of more complete products will have on your middle ground products, your products that are not sort of the I hate this word, study level simulation and whatnot?
Yeah, I guess I see what you're going for is now that the simulation levels are getting so high and so close to the real life aircraft is what happens to things in the middle ground. And I think the answer is not much. Like what these guys were saying before is a lot of us fly these sims for fun, and there's not much fun when you're bashing your head against the wall because you don't know how to program the FMS or the autopilot doesn't work. So having these aircraft that are somewhere in the middle ground and you can just have fun in them there's a lot of value in that as well. I like the training side of things with these aircraft and what they offer, but sometimes you just want to drink beer and do barrel rolls. So, why can't I do that? And if I'm flying the Flight Factor A320, I can't do that. The engine shut down, and then I'm a glider, and I don't like gliders. So, yeah.
You can restart the engine.
Maybe. I don't know. I've tried that sometimes. I don't know, but there's one of the Flight Factor aircraft you can't restart. No, it was the Jardine A330. You fly that thing, you'll barrel roll, engines won't start up again, you're a glider. It's not fun. But yeah, we like having fun in our sims, so I don't think much happens. There's just a different value proposition for the product, right?
Anybody else? No, we're good. Great, all right. Changing the subject a little bit here. So Prime from Denmark wants to know, is Chewie actually a ginger? So I have a few questions now talking about just sort of streaming in general and sort of less about the individual simulators and more kind of about streaming. And one of the questions that came in is said, what is your most memorable flight simulator moment? This came in from Blue Boo in England. I hope I say that right. And I want to extend that and just talk about what is your most memorable moment kind of in general streaming. And I'd like to open it up, just kind of have everybody talk a little bit if you'd like. Start with Jeff since he's next in line.
I've had a couple actually recently. I had a IXCG 737 shared cockpit flight go horribly wrong because the person that was with me ejected himself out of the airplane, and I was by myself. What it ended up doing was it broke the left aileron on it. So the autopilot just gently started making this turn, and I was just doing a circle, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And I realized I had no left aileron for some reason. So that was interesting. So I actually used the aileron trim wheel and moved that over, so I had it constantly doing this. And then I found out later on that the autopilot would fly the plane, so I actually ended up doing a full auto land into Minneapolis that night. And then the other one was recently the Aerobask 550. I was flying along when I was chasing weather. I love chase weather when it comes to my streams. And I was like, that's a pretty small little cell. It's moving to the right. In an X-plane, they're
thunderstorms are unforgivable in X-plane. You will kill yourself if you try to fly through a thunderstorm in X-plane. And as I said, I'll shoot between the middle. It was next radar data was probably pretty old by that time. And when I got into cell, it iced up. I nearly killed everybody on board the plane because I flew through a thunderstorm. But I think those are the recent two ones that I had that were memorable.
I remember doing a stream where I was flying formation in DCS and I was in an A10 and I was flying with other guys in an A10 and we were coming back towards Vegas. I think Nevada had just come out in DCS and we were flying along and we were talking about like how we're going to approach and all this kind of thing, and he decided to sort of fly upside down like over the top of me, you know, sort of Top Gun style, and after about 12 to 13 seconds, his engine's completely died because if you invert the A10, the fuel just cuts basically. And the next thing I remember is looking down and seeing a fireball on the road. I just laughed. I couldn't stop laughing, and the stream was just killing himself laughing.
How was that for that stream? Yep.
Mine's notorious on my channel. Again, I love how all of these are things that have gone wrong, like for flight sim moments. Samos. Samos is my big one, so if you don't know it, it's a rather tricky approach coming in from it. I'm not going to explain the procedure now. But I prep for it in advance. Again, usually, as much as I say about preparation, I don't do a whole lot of preparation on difficult approaches in advance. I learned from my mistakes with this one. So I prepared in advance as much as I could with it and felt really confident going into it. Ended up completely screwing the approach up in dramatic fashion, going around 3 times and then eventually saying, I can't do this, and venturing myself back onto the other runway, which was a much easier approach. Red in the face, you know, completely embarrassed as could be, rather angered at myself that it had gone this bad, and I've never been allowed to forget it since. So Samos is my most memorable stream, without a shadow of doubt.
Real quick, tell me about gear pins.
I'm not talking about gear pins. Okay, gear pins is another one. I actually talked to one of the Majestic developers about this earlier on this morning. So I've been flying the Majestic -8 Q400, which I can highly recommend for a number of years now. And one of the big features of it is that you have to click on a little like bag just behind the first officer's seat to get the gear pins in before you go. So I've been flying it for 2 years and have never forgotten them once. It happened once on my stream out of Seattle, and usually when I retract the landing gear, I have like a specific view that I go to so everybody can see the landing gear go up. So of course I click the button, the sim changes to this view, and absolutely nothing happens whatsoever. So that was an interesting one indeed. You know, I had to do a circuit and come back into land. So it doesn't matter how many hundreds and thousands of times you've flown an aircraft, you make one mistake in it, and you will never ever be allowed to forget it. So yeah.
For me, it's nothing about flying, or I do everything wrong in my flight sim. For me, it's actually...
Don't be so modest.
For me, it's actually how this flight sim community has grown. So I remember the days when me and Matt Davis were streaming, and there were like maybe 4 or 5 of us doing this. And these days, you see maybe, I don't know, 40, 50 people streaming flight sim. So for me, it's actually, over the years, seen how the flight sim community has grown. And it's actually really great to see this hobby of ours, how it's grown, and you've seen all the presentations today, how it's getting better and better and better. So that for me, it's just really nice to see how this flight sim community has grown. So.
I think one of the most spectacular things about my stream is my attention to detail, and how I miss something, always, so insignificant. There's the time when I ran the 777 off the end of the runway into Boston Harbor, and I used differential thrust to bring myself back and put myself onto the runway, took off and completed the flight. I think that might be an issue with the flight dynamics out. A couple of weeks ago, we were doing the F&O out in Alaska, and I'm flying along, and it's been a fairly frustrating evening for various reasons, with some communication problems, some go-arounds, just a lot of traffic and whatnot. And as I'm flying along, we're just looking out the window, chilling out. I look over, and there's this thing coming out of the ocean. It's 25,000 feet, I'd say, tall. It's got an American flag on the top of it, and it's this red, white, and blue cylinder. And I looked at that, and pardon me, but I said, what the hell is that? And I sat there and I stared at it, and I just lost it. And I was like, I know how to make this better. So I put the national anthem for the United States on the back, gave it a good salute, held against my heart, said play ball. And it was awesome. I just couldn't stop laughing. I think I laughed for 20 minutes throughout the course of that stream. And then there was, I think the best moment I've ever had in a flight sim is, again, my attention to detail. We were doing a Pilot Edge event, flying the 747. Uh-oh, this is only a little weird. Flying the 747 from Reno down to Los Angeles. Fantastic little flight. Off we go. It's been a great event, lots of traffic. That's all right, it's cool. No, it's fine. You're coming up soon, so don't worry about it. So we're flying into Los Angeles, and there's this building, this like 30-story building that's right on the final coming into LAX. And I'm thinking, well, a lot of the buildings in Los Angeles, a lot of the buildings in X-Plane, you can go right through them. And I'm kind of doing my thing, plodding along, this and that. I'm like, I bet I can go through that building because it's probably not solid. It was solid. 10 feet or 30, 40 feet off the ground. Beautiful flight coming in. It was a spectacular event. And I crashed the damn plane. Right, like it goes up, and then it comes back down, and it goes into a fire. So that was a fun one. That was on Twitch. That was, 20,000 views on Twitch fails. So, and I tell you, like, stay away from Twitch fails subreddit. There's a lot of, with the flight sim stuff especially, there's a lot of comments that are not appropriate.
Yeah, so this is flight sim moments, not flight sim stream, just a question, yeah?
Flight sim moment, flight sim streams, whatever you
got.
Well,
I'll go one for the feels. I'll follow Dirka here. I think, I've got lots, but I think one from last year really struck me is a viewer from, I think, nearly all of us. His name's Hadouken 77, it might even be one of these streams here. He came up and shook my hand and said, hey, thank you so much for inspiring me. I never thought I'd be interested in aeroplanes. You inspired me to go get my PPL, and I can't hang around anymore because I'm just about to go look at an aeroplane I'm about to buy. So this guy somehow has stumbled across our streams and somehow has liked the stuff that we've been talking about with aeroplanes so much that he's gone out and bought himself his own private aircraft. And the one thing we all have in common is we like aeroplanes, we like simulators, we like these things, and bringing people into aviation or flight simming is how we keep growing, it's how we get these better products, it's how we get new aeroplanes and things like that. So for me, it's that is the real people that we get to see and meet and shake hands with and inspire. Yeah, I'm going to go with inspire. Yeah.
I feel inspired.
Yeah.
We're doing great.
Yeah.
You just did great. That you knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
You and him both. The rest of us are terrible. So that was good. I like that. Change it to kind of. We'll wrap up the sort of canned questions and get some questions from you guys here. I got a few more that I want to ask though. I'm going to paraphrase this one again. Keith Smith from Pilot Edge had a question, and I'm going to talk to probably Chewy and whomever else wants to answer. But let me find this because it's very well written. Education versus entertainment, he says. Given that many people use free internet as their primary learning source because books are scary, do you feel any obligation to demonstrate good airmanship, planning, and technique? And how much weight do you give those aspects of the stream, or to the stream, versus just pure entertainment?
Absolutely nothing at all. I think that's a really good question, and it's something that, as a content creator, plays on my mind all the time. I stepped into my first real flight deck on Thursday flying in just to go and visit the pilots who flew us in. I've never had any real world experience whatsoever, and I remember 4 years ago looking at Matt Davis's content of the PMBG 737 and going, how the heck am I going to learn this thing just to a basic level? And that's quite daunting for people who are coming into simulation for the first time. So yes, I feel as a content creator, even if you do just like to do battle rolls and have beers and stuff, I feel like there is still an obligation for the people who want to learn to impart your knowledge on them. Even if your knowledge isn't that much, it's still better than what they've currently got. And a lot of people, like they may say, oh, they enjoy watching your stream and everything, and they've learned a lot from my stream. My response is, I'm glad you probably learned exactly what not to do in your sims by watching my stream. So it can be a really fine balance. As a completely away from flight simulation, as a content creator, you've got to keep your audience entertained. That's, I guess, the primary thing. But with flight simulators now evolving so much and getting so much more complex and involved, yes, there is a certain time where you need to show people how to do something. And I think what's also important as a content creator is I experience it a lot where you will get asked the same question repeatedly over the course of the day. And it's really tricky sometimes to not just go, I showed it 5 minutes ago, I can't be bothered. But to approach every single person who's asking a question about wanting to learn something and trying to give them an answer that is, I don't know how best to word this, but give them an answer that's suited for their individual question. Because even though you may get the same question on a similar topic, it may not be catered for that individual person the same way that you should answer it to another person who's asking a similar question. So it's just a case of gauging when to get into intellectual mode and when to get into the mode to be a complete and utter idiot, which I try and do a little bit of both of. Usually it's the latter one.
I kind of see myself as an entertainer first and then education second, but having said that, I kind of feel like it's a two-way street. I think there's a lot of people who come into my streams who are very, very knowledgeable, and I don't know everything about the ins and outs of all these aircraft, but some of these people really do. And I can explain a lot of concepts to people who are just getting started and try and put it across in a way that is, just have a go, just get in there and click these buttons and have a go, get off the ground and just enjoy yourself. And later on you can start learning about the details and procedures and all the rest of it, but initially just have fun with it. And as I sort of, as I fly, there will be people in chat who will get irate if you don't do things to the right detail. And I say, look, if you want to fly that way, that's cool. Well, I'm just having fun here and everybody else is having fun. But I will try and make it as authentic as possible. I will learn how things are supposed to be done and try to emulate it. But I always fall back on the thing that I'm trying to entertain, and we're all just having a good time. And that's my approach to my stream.
I want to add a little bit more too. And this is a part, I feel really strongly kind of about this particular topic. My foray into flight simulation was really, in Twitch streaming, started with the 727, and if you guys have ever flown that in X-Plane, it's an immensely complex airplane with lots of dials and gadgets and gizmos, and for whatever reason, it just clicked with me. I read the manual, I learned how to fly the plane, and that's sort of what started to bring people in and get me noticed and whatnot. And I realized that a lot of people will come in for some expertise, but more often than not, they just want to know how to fly the damn thing. How do I get it up in the air? How do I do the thing? How do I do the basics? And sort of the mentality that I've adopted has been to, do just enough to get it flying. I don't typically go with the checklists and things like that. We know, at this point, folks have flown, Boeings and Airbuses enough to know that, okay, I need generators, I need packs, I need pressurization, I need lights. You sort of know the process, and you can sort of apply that to every single airplane. But the one place where I really like to have the realistic side of things is talking about approaches and sort of briefing. Here's the things that we can anticipate coming up, because that's sort of where literally the rubber meets the road. And everything else can be well and good. And Keith has made this observation before, but if you ever tune in to one of my streams, it's pretty much all serious, generally, as long as things are going well. It's pretty much all serious until we are at about 10 or 15,000 feet. And then you'll see my whole demeanor just sort of goes, all right, we can now talk for however long it is until we have to start thinking about descents and whatnot. So, and I think that's it. I think you need to have a good balance there of all of that. So I have one more canned question, and then I'll open it up to the floor here. I think we've got some time for a fair number of questions. But this one is from Kurgan UK from Leeds. And he says, outside of flight simming, what would you say has been the most influential game that you have played? And we'll start here. We'll start with whomever wants to grab the mic and go.
Grand Theft Auto 5? No, any kind of simulator for the most part. I'm just amazed by so many different systems of different simulators out there. Train sim, truck simulators. Euro Truck Simulator got me into the bug of truck simming, or trucking, whatever you want to call it. But it's no secret that a large part of my channel was due to Grand Theft Auto 5 and doing roleplay aspects and in police roleplay, believe it or not. And the people go, how the hell did you do police roleplay, but yet you do flight simulator? I'm like, well, I actually used to work at the airport, and then this is a whole long story, and I got into flight simulation, fell in love with aviation, got my PPL, and then don't even use my PPL anymore, to be honest with you. I prefer flying virtual airplanes for some reason. I don't know why that is, but it is true. But most influential is probably Grand Theft Auto 5. I can't say that it wasn't.
For me, definitely is Euro Truck Simulator. Euro Truck Simulator 2, I was making videos on before it kind of launched on Steam. And then when it launched on Steam, I think it went to #1 in the Steam charts for about 10 weeks or something. And as a result, my YouTube videos just took off. So without a doubt, it is significantly boosted my channel.
As mentioned earlier on, I used to work in the esports industry, so my big one is Counter-Strike. That's what I did full-time before I came to flight simulation. It's a complete other world away from simulation as a whole, a completely different community on a completely different scale. But being able to travel to events all over the place just for playing a video game, I can now apply that here with this. Just playing flight simulators landed me in Vegas for the first time. That's crazy to think. And it was the same with Counter-Strike. It was just something that I loved to play. An opportunity arose where I thought I'd give it a try with commentating, and it went from there. So it's not necessarily a game that I've played that's influenced me, but that I've worked with in a community of people that I've worked with that was the real big influencer in a good way, but also opened my eyes to how things can go wrong with the game as well, and how things can go wrong with the community, and how to handle that as somebody involved with it. So yeah, Counter-Strike's my one for sure.
I've been gaming for many years, from an early age when I was living in South Africa, but what got me into flight simming was, again, just a love for aircraft. Living in apartheid South Africa, where I grew up, we didn't get all the airplanes coming into South Africa, so me just seeing a 747 for the first time, or some of those older planes, was really fun. So I think, yeah, that's just my love for aircraft and my love for aviation got me into flight simming, but just the general gaming in general.
Mine's completely different. World of Warcraft. You may not know, I played roughly 9,000 hours of World of Warcraft. I wish I was lying. And I was involved in guilds and communities and sort of meeting and managing and learning what makes people tick and sort of getting folks to bend to your will and do something that maybe they don't want to do. Like stand out of the fire, not stand in the fire. So I had a lot of sort of community management experience working through that game for many, many years. And truthfully, it's experience that I wish I could put on my resume. I wish it wasn't such a, they could put on my resume, they wouldn't hire me, or they wouldn't talk to me. But it was real world experience, and that's translated unbelievably well into some of the community management stuff in the flight sim world, especially, or even in Twitch in general, because you have differing opinions and differing sort of mentalities about how things should be done. And it was no different than the things that we dealt with then, and sort of understanding like somebody else's point of view and understanding like what makes them tick and sort of how to get them to either agree with you or to at least go along with you, and make them feel like and understand that they are part of the decision-making process and things like that. So it was definitely World of Warcraft for me. I don't play it too much anymore because my wife would probably leave me if I did, but once in a while.
Yeah, I don't have a really specific answer for this. I don't have a particular game or anything. I've always liked computer games. It's like a way to escape the world or do whatever. You can be playing GTA 5 or Age of Empires or any of these games like that. I do find myself playing like grindy games like Dota 2, but that's really just so I can close the door and rage at noobs on the internet. But I don't have any real games that I can say are really influential. But I think PC gaming in general, perhaps maybe that's it. It's just a way to turn on a computer and escape the world and just do something different, I guess.
Did it ever occur to you that you might be the problem?
Yeah,
What's the common factor in every Dota game that you play?
The 9 other players.
So at this point, I'd love to open up the floor for questions. If you guys don't have questions, I have a whole bank of things to ask here. Sirius Max is right here, and he'd love to talk to you later as well. He's going to walk around with a microphone and yeah, do some Q&A. So we'll start over here. We got a couple. We got a green shirt and what color is that? Gray. Okay, we'll go with gray.
Why do you care?
Why do I care? Yeah, because I do. Okay. You want to hold it sort of at chest level. They told us at chest level.
Yeah, Max can hold it for
There you go.
Flight simulation allows a multiplayer environment, a lot of different ways of doing it. I imagine it brings you guys closer to your audience, but also can attract trolls. How important is that multiplayer aspect to what you do and bring you closer to your audience?
I'm going to say Matt or Dirk, probably for that. Trolls in multiplayer environments.
Yes, on my channel I do a lot of group stuff. My whole channel is about getting you guys involved. So yeah, it does bring in the trolls. I just got some good moderators who just nip it in the bud straight away. You just ignore it. Yeah, just ignore it. I think if you feed the trolls, then they're going to come back. For some reason, the flight sim community does have a lot of trolls. We have a lot of nasty people coming in. I ban a lot of words on my channel, so I don't tolerate anything to do with like 9/11 or crashing or anything like that. So I actually ban those words. So if anyone wants to type 9/11 or crashing into towers or whatever it is, I ban those words straight off so that those trolls don't even have the chance to type that in my channel. So I don't take any of that. I don't take any. I just like try to keep my channel, PG. I have a lot of, we have a lot of young kids watching the channel as well. So I try not to swear on the channel. Just keep it, just keep it a family-friendly environment. So.
Yeah, and to add to that, you go on a public network, you go on a free network, and it's going to happen. People are idiots sometimes. And the best thing that you can do is to just ignore it as well as you can. Don't give them, don't acknowledge, don't even talk about it, don't show a reaction. Sometimes it's one of the hardest things to do because you just want to look, what is your problem? But as soon as you do that, as soon as they get a rise out of you, you've lost. That's it. They win. They have more experience doing this than you do, and that's sort of the end of it.
I'll tell you a funny story actually. It was a couple of years ago. It happened to a couple of the early streamers. There was a knock on my door, and there was a pizza delivery guy delivering pizzas, and he said, "You ordered this." I said, "No, I didn't." It must have happened about 15 times. So someone was phoning all the takeaway places around my area where I was streaming from. They obviously found my address, and they were just delivering like pizzas, Italian, curry, and this just went on and on and on. So there was one stage, maybe like 4 years ago, where there was just a real bad vibe in the community with what I just said. I think there was one incident where one of the streamers up in Scotland, I think the fire brigade got called out. So you can see it got quite serious at one stage, but we just try and not have any of that in the community. So
I think we had a gray shirt over here, Max.
Thank you very much for that. I'm just wondering, as a new streamer, someone who's going into this sort of thing, so how do you build up a core viewer base and get to the number of views that you do? Just bearing also in mind that we talked earlier about the education versus entertainment side. I definitely lie more towards the educational side, except for the occasion losing my temper, which is quite entertaining. But yeah, how do you build up a viewer base and get so many viewers?
Sure. I was going to say, have fun, be yourself.
The big word for me that I always say to people is consistency, and that's not just when people think of consistency, they think of a schedule, which is very difficult for people who've got a job or going through education themselves. But consistency means, for me, not only your schedule. If your schedule is once a week of streaming, that's fine. But it's also the quality of your content. It's making sure that your audio and video is in good stead before you go live. Things still happen, technical issues happen, but that's another good one as well. And it's just the consistency in how you are and how you approach your content creation. If you keep the consistency across the different things that you approach with it, then it will happen. And as Brenden says, have fun. Don't worry about the numbers. If you're having fun, the people who are watching you, even if it's 2 people or 200, chances are they will have fun as well. So if you're sat there and you're like, oh gosh, I've only got 2 viewers at the moment, that's instantly going to play subconsciously in your psyche. So just have fun, and over time it will naturally progress.
I think consistency is definitely one. Get yourself a schedule. Like if you can only stream Friday, Saturday evenings, or whatever it is, then just post that on your Twitch page and say, this is my schedule, and stick to it. You need to be consistent with your gaming as well. Like it's no good doing Flight Sim on Friday night and then playing Dota on Saturday night. You need to sort of be consistent with what you are as a channel and what you represent as a channel. And yeah, just like have fun with it, but never ever have on another screen how many viewers you've currently got. It's just a big mistake. And I say that from a person that's had sitting there with 40 viewers and getting super stressed out when I got to 100. And I've streamed to over 10,000 people. So you can get to the levels of, oh my God, like how many people are watching this? Just close it away, put on the best show that you can, no matter how many people are watching, whether it's 10 people or 100 people, just be as entertaining as you can, but absolutely try to keep your anger under control.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you've got to be in it for the right reasons, I think. If you show up on the Twitch platform collecting donations immediately, having a very monetary style to your streams, I don't think you're going to have the quality of people you want there. They're probably going to troll you, they're probably going to make your life a hell because of it. So my biggest advice, I get that question a lot, and I go, you know what, you cannot force somebody to like you. You're going to have to live with that. People are going to hate you, and a lot of that reason is because you're putting yourself out there for that, for them to make the decision if they like you or if they don't. So have that in mind, that if you're a drab, boring person, you just are. And there's ways to be better about your content when you make it. But also don't have an ego. Leave the ego in the other room and then go there and stream and just game and talk to people and have fun. Because if you're there trying to get notoriety and you're trying to get this audience, it always comes across that way. Everything that I see, it usually does. So to me, I never, in YouTube, to where I'm at now, I never set out there to do it. I know there are people today that say, I want to go do this. I'm going to be a YouTuber, I want to be a streamer. Which is interesting because now it's kind of changed and it's more mainstream and it's more accepted. But when I did it, I was just literally having fun with my friends, and it grew exponentially from there. So that's the biggest advice, is just be yourself and don't clutter your screen up with all overlays, please. For the love of God, do not do that.
I guess just to echo the sentiments. I like the idea of, I don't see how many people that I've got there. It could be 2 people, it could be 10, like it doesn't matter. But the thing that I really focused on when I started is there's a person behind the name in Twitch chat. So when you're trying to grow, get to know that person. You look at guys here, like, who's John Fly? Like, we have John Fly, we have Cirrus Max. Like, you don't know who that name is attached to, what they are, where they are in life. You could have anyone from a 16-year-old kid to a guy that's retiring, or someone on their deathbed that just wants to watch something and have fun. You don't know what their name is, and it could be, Lady Man 67 or whatever, but you don't know who that person is. So get to know them, and people will be interested in that, and it shows that you care about people. And if that's not interesting to you, well, don't get into Twitch. But that's what I focused on, is getting to know who is behind that name. What is that name? Because it's a person, and you don't know who that person is, where they are, where they come from. Get to know them.
I like one real quick.
just have one more?
Absolutely.
Just one more thing on that. When you're small, it helps, as Alan says, to try to connect the people who are actually tuning in. So when you're answering a question, read their name out. Read when it's like, oh, Blademan67 just asked this question. Respond to them directly. You'll be amazed when you're a viewer, when the streamer actually talks to you, mentions your name, how powerful that is. So do that.
I read How to Win Friends and Influence People around the time that I was getting up with Twitch. And that was actually one of the pieces of advice that stuck with me the most. You guys all make fun of me for saying, welcome aboard, happy Friday, it's good to see you, Will, it's good to see you, Max, and all that. But that's exactly why I do it. Because it's fun to be recognized, whether it's for a quick little 10 minutes at the beginning or whatever. And also, from a presentation standpoint, if somebody's asking a question, you just answer it. Well, what was the question? Blue. I don't know what that means. So it's good to read back the question, read back the name, and go from there. And the last piece that I would say is that everybody is interesting to somebody in some way. You have a personality trait out there that somebody will find interesting. Find that trait, have some fun with it. I'm lucky that I'm generally quite good at explaining things and sort of putting a little twist on it, and that's why a lot of my streams is just me saying, all right, let's do an approach briefing now, and let's push some buttons on the overhead and see what happens, and being able to talk to people and say, this is sort of my interpretation of how it was done. But everybody has some sort of trait that makes them a desirable or likable person, and that's just what you have to find.
I was wondering how long. I'm in awe of how much you guys do as far as tutorials and streaming. I've learned a lot from YouTube because manuals can be pretty intensive, and when you fly so many planes, you just can't go through hundreds and hundreds of pages of manuals from start to finish. So my question is, when I see you guys putting these things together from a technical standpoint, the music, the slow motion, how you switch screens and how you do it. It seems like the technical aspect of putting these tutorials together, these streams together, is as much of a learning curve as learning how to fly the damn plane. It just seems like it's so intense, and I wonder if you guys had a background in this field, or how long it took you to be able to put one, because I don't even know a starting point of how to put one of these things together.
When I started YouTube, I knew nothing about how to use a video editor. And I started off with Sony Vegas and started using that, and it was quite simple to use. Later on, I moved to Adobe Premiere Tools. When it comes to streaming, I've said this to many people, doing video is very easy. Getting your audio right is really difficult. To go for a full professional outfit, you're talking like a second stream PC, mixer, a quality mic, a green screen camera, lighting. It's insane how much stuff, but you can't start though. And you mustn't start though. You've got to grow this channel slowly and just keep adding bits to it, and your learning will never stop. Whether it's learning how to fly an aircraft or learning how to use Adobe Premiere, you'll always learn something every day.
For me, the hobby is as much now the broadcasting portion as it is the flying portion. Pushing all the buttons, getting all the knobs set up, getting the whole thing running at the very beginning. I love doing that. And I love being able to put on the show. And like Paul says, it's bit by bit. Start with, this is good audio, and this is better audio, but we'll get there at some point. This is good video, and just piece by piece sort of moving through it. And then eventually you do enough that it just all becomes second nature. Just like flying the complex airplanes, I have a keypad next to my screen with programmed views and things like that. I can pull FlightSim, push FlightSim away just by pushing a couple of buttons. And it's all second nature.
Yeah. To answer your question, I did video production before I ever got into YouTube. So I learned Adobe Premiere through that. And that's why people go, why are you using Adobe Premiere for gaming videos? Because it's not compatible really with a lot of the footage you're dealing with. I'm like, well, that's because that's what I used and I know how to use it. So yeah, it looks like we just came out of nowhere, but usually you're self-taught in this way. There's a lot of YouTube tutorials out there I use all the time to better it. But yeah, just to directly answer your question, I had video production background, and then I just moved that into gaming.
Big Rock says, let's go. We'll start here with SimFest UK.
Guys, I just want to say thanks very much for giving us such a variety of things to look at and giving up your free time for our entertainment. Bear in mind that some of you are full-time streamers and such like that. When you do have free time, flight or simulation excluded, what do you guys watch on Twitch? Or what content do you watch to chill out or entertain yourselves?
What's funny is that I believe in the very product that I do on a daily basis, doing YouTube content creation and doing Twitch. That's all the content I consume. I don't even watch television anymore for the most part, and believe it or not, I watch a lot of very small name people that I was telling just last night to these guys. It's like my favorite flight sim channel is a guy named Programmer. I don't know if you guys know who he is. It's always amazing that you can find anybody out there, and I even learned how to fly the PMDG 737 because of Matt Davies. You find all these different videos out there, and you consume it, and that's all I watch now. I just watch usually smaller people or bigger people, it doesn't matter, but I definitely believe in the very thing that I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my downtime I might sort of go and, I follow these guys, so if they're streaming I'll go and see what they're doing. Otherwise I'll bounce around Twitch and have a look around, and if I get really desperate I'll go on YouTube and start looking for videos. But if I'm trying to learn something, then I'll just find videos of it, and watch that. I might watch some aviation documentaries or whatever. In terms of gaming, I have a very long history with FPS games, so generally speaking I'll just go and shoot some stuff and kind of get some attention that way.
Yeah, it's the same. It kind of depends on the mood for me, what I'm kind of interested to watch. It can be something completely different to gaming whatsoever, again on YouTube or on Twitch. But one thing that I definitely would stay away from is the IRL section of Twitch, because that's a really slippery slope. So you have to be in a really special mood to go onto there, and you find some very interesting things. But sometimes there's a time for that when you just feel like going and watching, I don't know, somebody doing hula hooping in their back garden, it can be whatever. So yeah, I bounce around. It depends what I'm really in the mood to watch, whether it's FPS stuff, whether it's more simulation stuff, or whether it's hula hooping people in their garden.
Yeah, I'm the same. I just try and support the other flight streamers, pop in and say hello. So I've got another job as well, so it's a long day for me. And then I just spend time with the family, or I tend to just play other games as well. So
yeah, I watch all the other guys. I am lucky to be able to watch Twitch at work or have one in the background, so I get my fill of all the Brits and hear about Toblerones and Yorkies or Westies and all that. That's my cultural experience, is listening to these guys talk about their local idiosyncrasies while I'm doing my work, pretending to sometimes. Anybody else? One or two more.
So what made you choose the simulator that you do? And if you chose, is it because of the products that are available, the realism, or what?
Oh man, I'm gonna start with this one. I started in FSX. I did a lot of FSX. I love the Majestic Q400. It's still one of my favorite planes, and I'm devastated that I can't fly it. FSX stopped working. It would run for 45 minutes and crash. I tried reinstalls, I tried wiping config files, I tried everything I could find under the sun. It would not keep working. So I begrudgingly picked up X-Plane and said, all right, well, I don't really like this. I don't know if I like this stuff anyway, so let's just get this thing and see what happens. And that sort of was that. It was stable enough that it didn't crash on me too much, and off we went.
I started with FSX. Then I went to Prepared version 1, flew that for a while, then back to FSX, and then I made the move to X-Plane. And as you heard earlier, I just bounce around between all the sims, because I just enjoy flying all the different planes. So you just got a great choice of planes on every sim. You've got a great choice of scenery on every sim. So for me, it's everything. I enjoy all of it. So.
I think with me is going off what you talked about earlier on with the fact that I feel like there's almost an onus on a lot of people that you have to choose one sim to fly, and that is it. You are either a prepared guy or you're an X-Plane 11 guy in that instance. For me, I chose prepared again, coming from FSX. It just seemed quite native for me to just go from one to the other. It wasn't really too much of a big switch. And I love the aircraft, mainly they're available for me. It may not have the flight dynamics that Alan loves so much, but the aircraft that I had like in prepared is for those aircraft. But I think it's good to have variety. I've recently started doing DCS with the FA-18. Never expected really to be pretty much concentration into that. But again, I feel like as content creators and as everyday simmers, you shouldn't feel like you need to focus on one sim if you don't want to. If you've invested a lot of money into a certain simulator, then okay, maybe yeah, it's probably natural for that to be your primary simulator. But don't feel like you have to fall into the category of either one side of the ship or the other side of it. Fly what you want to fly and have fun with it. I just choose prepared because I love the aircraft, but I think all the sims have got their advantages and disadvantages for different reasons between them.
I guess I like anything with an engine in it. I mean, preferably the bigger the better. I have a fascination with big machinery. I think that's where my simulation love kind of comes from. But you know, I fly planes. I drive trucks. You know, combine harvesters, farming simulator. I don't know what it is. It's just big machinery. It just fascinates me, and I just love jumping in the cockpit and go, "Let's go, boys!" You know, just seeing where we go with it. So that's really why I play various sims. I don't just focus on one.
My main sim of choice is X-Plane 11, X-Plane for the most part. I did FSX for years. I did FS 95, 98, all the way up till 2000 and whatever the last one was, and then it went into FSX. Well, I was very familiar with the ESP platform, and to me, it got to a point where I was like, I can add all these add-ons, but it's just not a challenging experience, especially after just finishing my private license. I felt like it wasn't a challenging thing to land these planes. It felt like a dead experience when I would touch down and be like, okay, well, we're on the ground. And X-Plane just brought the physics that I was looking for. To me, it replicated real life flight to me in a way that I gravitated towards it and just started doing a lot more flight simming because of it. But it's basically because of the physics. That's the main reason why I choose X-Plane.
Yeah, I'll just be quick so we get this last question. I think, it's the flight dynamics. X-Plane, if you wanted to really summarize it down, X-Plane, GA, P3D, go and fly some jets. For me, jets are boring, you push a button and go places. Like I fly a lot of the jets in my stream, but I try and make it interesting and talk about the systems and the depth behind them. But X-Plane, you can fly a 172 in X-Plane, you don't feel like the aircraft reacts the way a 172 does, with the air currents and all that fancy stuff. So for me, yeah, X-Plane is, we're based in general aviation, so it just feels better in X-Plane for GA.
Alright, I'm getting looked at right now, so I think we're all set. Can we do one more? Alright, so we got one more. I had one more. You guys gotta do, right, rock, paper, scissors, let's go, right now. 1, 2, 3. Okay. If you want to ask your question, we'll be around afterwards.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. I'm just getting into streaming, and I'm a huge DCS person, and I know we're kind of minority here with combat simulators, but I'm noticing that I go back and look at my own streams again, going back and looking, I'm like, I have like all this dead space. And you were talking about, you hit that 14,000 foot mark and other things. And so how do you guys kind of handle that dead space to kind of try and keep the audience engaged, especially during a live thing? I can do like a standard video and you just start at point A to B, easy, done. But live, there's all this dead space. How do you guys handle that?
Inner monologue.
It's funny because I get accused a lot in my videos for talking too much, and that's the exact reason why I make those videos, is so I try to prevent dead space. But with live streaming, I really, really love it because when you get above the sterile cockpit, I always do sterile cockpit stuff so I can focus on the flying, so I'm not that terrible. And then when I get above that, I really open it up to a Q&A with the live chat, talk to them, get to know them. And actually, I've gotten to know a lot more people in the streams because of the cruise phase of flight.
Yeah, and I will say it gets a lot easier. Like I think the first like 10 viewers is the toughest to try to get. Once you get about 10 or 15 people and you can start getting a conversation that starts flowing, you'll get those questions when you're up in cruise and things like that. But sort of in the meantime, you're always thinking about what's going on. Just verbalize that. Talk about like it's going to be weird at first, and I do this like I'm doing right now. And talk about what's coming up next. What's the thing? Like what could happen right now? In this very moment, we could lose an engine. If we lost an engine, well, that looks like a good spot down there. So think about that. What's the next thing that's coming up? Especially if you're flying an airliner, you've got top of descent planning, you've got arrival planning, you've got approach planning. You can get all that done way out ahead of time. And so before you're actually flying it, before you actually have that coming up.
Yeah, I kind of have the opposite problem. I literally ignore my chat for hours at a time. It's great, but that gives me time to talk about stuff later. But like what all these guys here are saying is, while I'm doing something, I'm verbalizing it, and then like I set time and place to talk about things. But if I'm doing a cockpit flow, nothing else matters to me because I need to get the flow correct or things go wrong. So give yourself the time and then just talk about the things that you're doing. If you are just flying straight and level, like what we answered over here, find someone in chat, find out about that person, talk to them. If you've got absolutely nothing to talk about in a sim, talk about the people in chat. That's why we have Twitch. It's not YouTube comments here. There's someone there that will have a question or has done something in the day that you might care about. So talk to the people in chat. Talk about your airplane. When that runs out, talk to people.
Everybody, I want to thank you all so much for coming out.